Everybody loves creatures in ARK that make the game a whole lot easier to play, especially when they do things for us without us even having to lift a finger. In this video, I'll be showcasing 50 creature passives and abilities you need to know in ARK. I will be including creatures from both ARK Survival Ascended and Evolved, but of course there are creatures from Evolved that are not yet currently available in Ascended, which I will state in the clips. For the creatures that are available in both games, I will use footage from Ascended and will state any differences they may have from their Evolved versions. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. The Parasaur can be a great asset in either PvE and PvP, with its radar ability. It can be utilized either mounted or when unmounted, which can be accessed via its radial menu and catered to your liking. When set in turret mode, the Parasaur will call out and will scan any potential nearby enemies, which will be visible as a red aura on your screen. A good example in PvE is when playing Scorched Earth. You can carry one with a wyvern and you'll be able to find the location of a wild phoenix even before a heatwave occurs, which is extremely valuable. There are a variety of rideable, non-rideable creatures and shoulder pets that have zero armor protection due to not having a saddle. However, there are a small selection of creatures that can wear helmets for additional armor protection. The Mesopithecus, Gigantopithecus, Kairuku, Otter, Jerboa, Bulbdog, Featherlight, Glowtail, Shinehorn, Achatina, and finally the Ferox, Sinomacrops, and the Dinopithecus, which are all currently only available in ARK Survival Evolved. The Ferox will come with the Genesis Part 1 map release, and the Sinomacrops and Dinopithecus will come with the Lost Island release, which of course will be in the year of 2029. The Dung Beetle is another valuable creature. Once tamed, it will passively produce oil and fertilizer in its inventory over time. Set it to wander and throw it in a cage. In ARK Survival Ascended, there is an option to auto-collect feces in a radius around your base, where it will collect poop in its inventory over time, well over its weight capacity. However, in Survival Evolved, this is not an option, so you will have to manually put feces in its inventory, and you will probably need to level its weight stat a decent amount so it can carry more poo. It's a good idea to use a Phiomia, ram some stim berries into it and force feed it, giving you poop for days, and you'll be able to play Farming Simulator in no time at all. Moving on to the Achatina, which works the same way as a dung beetle. Throw it in a cage, stick it on wander, and over time they will produce organic polymer and Achatina paste, which is a direct substitute of cementing paste, which will take 60 minutes to cap out at 100, where you'll have to take it out for it to begin producing more. It does also have a 3x spoil timer on organic polymer, so if you ever have any of that left over from crafting, it's a good idea to stick it in one of your snails. Two things to mention: they will only eat sweet veggie cakes as food, and be sure to spay your snails, because if you don't, they'll have far too much fun in their cages, constantly mating with each other, and we definitely don't want that. The Oviraptor is a very useful tame to have around your base. So for example, you need more UT eggs for extraordinary kibble. Have the Oviraptor nearby, weigh it down with some stone or anything heavy and enable wandering. Any affected creatures will have an egg symbol next to their name, meaning they are affected by the Oviraptor's passive ability, where it will reduce the egg production interval of allied females nearby. In ARK Survival Ascended, it also has the option to pick up fertilized and non-fertilized eggs from any of your creatures within a nearby radius, which can be accessed via its radial menu. Another cool feature is that it can pick up wild fertilized eggs where the parents will not aggro to it at all. Drop it down, land, and get it to follow you over the egg, and it will pick it up for you. Not really an ability I have too much use for, but it may be handy to others. There are a variety of creatures in ARK that offer passive insulation to the player. Standing next to a dire bear will grant the player 35 hypo and hypothermic protection. The Basilosaurus grants the player a massive 562 hypo and hypothermic insulation. If you wanted to, you could probably ride it naked in the Arctic Ocean. No idea why you'd want to do that, but I'm just showcasing how good it is. The Kairuku grants nearby players 26 hypothermic insulation, which does stack with the more penguins you have in close proximity. Can be very useful if you live in the colder areas on the map. Plus they're super cute. Oh, look at those cute little faces. The Dimetrodon offers 90 hypo and hypothermic insulation and can be boosted by leveling up its melee stat. The Ferox will grant the player 225 hypo and hypothermic protection, which is also very good. The Otter is the best by a long way, offering the player around 75 hypo and 34 hypothermic insulation, which can also be boosted by leveling its melee stat. They are a shoulder pet, so you can wear them like a scarf to keep you extra warm in the coldest of places. Who even needs clothes when you have an Otter? Adding to this, the Dimetrodon and the Otter can be used as portable air conditioners to incubate fertilized eggs, if you have enough of them, of course. Be sure to tame higher wild levels if you intend to use them for this purpose. The higher you can level their melee stat, the better incubators they will be. The Otter also has a unique passive ability of carrying more than one of the same artifact when placed in its inventory, which can save you multiple trips in retrieving artifacts. Next up, we also have a one of a kind. The Desmodus is the only flyer that can fly in caves. Another nice passive it has is that it can heal large portions of its health when consuming blood packs from its inventory. This will only occur when it is hungry. You can, however, slightly speed up its hunger by latching onto a surface and going into stealth mode. The Desmodus is currently only available in Ark Survival Evolved and will come to Ascended with the release of Fjordur. Sadly, I am dreading the thought of how long we'll be waiting for this in ASA. Another passive of the Desmodus, which is honestly a game changer in ASE, the Sanguine Elixir can be crafted in its inventory, requiring 200 blood packs to craft, which is fine because the Desmodus harvests blood packs like there's no tomorrow. Once crafted, the elixir can be used to instantly increase the taming progress of any creature or the imprint progress of a baby by 30% on use. To do this, simply stick it on any hotbar slot and look at the creature you are taming or baby you want to imprint, and use it from your hotbar. One thing to note is that this can only be used on a creature once. Even if you reset the tame by letting it wake up, then knock it back out, you will not be able to use the elixir on the second attempt. And be sure to have your taming food in the creature before using the elixir. The Bulldog, Shinehorn, Glowtail, and Featherlight are Aberration Lightpets, which are the most important creatures to tame on Aberration, offering valuable passive abilities, one being their Charge Light, which once turned on will deter and reduce the numbers of Nameless and Reapers spawning, and will also remove their natural armor protection, allowing you to kill them much easier. This light can be turned on via their radial menu or by using the clap emote, which is the easiest method when out exploring. One thing to note is that having the charge light turned on will also attract seekers. With a setting to enable via their radial menu, these light pets will also notify you when a max level wild creature or enemy player is nearby. This can be visible with an icon at the bottom of your screen, which can be very useful. The Jerboa is one of the most important creatures when playing Scorched Earth. They will warn you of incoming weather storms minutes before they occur, giving you enough time to get yourself to a safe location before the storm hits. A sandstorm, for example, can be detrimental to survivors stuck out in it. Heroes don't always wear capes. The Jerboa will save your life. There are a selection of creatures that can auto-harvest resources for you when not ridden. The Doedicurus, Ankylosaurus, Beaver, and the Ferrazino, these are the most popular auto-harvesters. This can be utilized in many ways. I personally don't use it much myself, as I think it's more efficient to do it myself riding the creatures. A good example of this for me is when playing solo on the island. I'll stick my Anky on Wander and just leave him up on top of the volcano. If you do have these creatures in a closed off area or roaming around a company with a bodyguard, it can be quite beneficial. Mine is yet to walk off the side of the volcano, so fingers crossed that won't happen. So yeah, I'll just leave him up here, come back later and grab the metal off him. What a lot of people don't know is that they will only auto harvest until they reach 50% of their maximum weight capacity. So if you do want them to auto harvest for longer to gather more resources, then you will have to pump levels into their weight stats. Here's a list of creatures with weight reduction on many heavy resources. Shoulder pets are also very useful in helping you carry more items. They receive 50% weight reduction for anything inside their inventory when perched on your shoulder. The Sonomacrops is the only shoulder pet that will have 75% weight reduction for any items. I actually never knew any of this for years when I started playing Ark, but now I almost always never go anywhere without a shoulder pet. They will help you carry so many more items. There are also many creatures in the game that act as portable crafting stations. Here's a quick list: the Argentavis, Fawny Dragon, and Castoroides, once saddled, will act as a portable smithy. The Equus, once saddled, will act as a portable mortar and pestle. The Phoenix and Magmasaur will act as a portable refining forge, which can smelt metal and cook meat at a slightly faster rate than the basic forge. The Magmasaur is currently only available in Ark Survival Evolved and will come to Ascended when the Genesis Part 1 map releases. The Tropiognathus will act as a portable grinder, but is not nearly half as efficient as the industrial grinder. The Tropiognathus is also currently only available in Survival Evolved and will come to Ark Survival Ascended when the Crystal Isles map releases. The Archelon was recently added to the official roster of creatures in Ark Survival Ascended. It is not an official creature in Survival Evolved. It has many useful passives at its disposal. The saddle can seat 1 rider and 4 passengers, and gives all players breathable oxygen, so there's no need for a scuba tank when riding it. It will also passively produce its own algae over time. The production of this can be sped up twice as quickly when having your Archelon submerged or swimming in water. Harvesting it can be done via its radial menu and will also produce a lot more when leveling its food stats. The algae can be used as taming food for herbivores. Basically, it works as their alternative to raw mutton, so it's a better taming food than berries and crops, but not quite as efficient as kibble. This algae is also used as a crafting requirement in algae sushi, which can be force fed to creatures you are taming to replenish any lost taming effectiveness by 10% per feed. It is also immune to the Nidaria stun attacks and deals extra damage to them, which it will receive a buff when killing them, massively increasing its damage output and slightly increasing its damage resistance. The Vulture is a shoulder pet that has a great passive ability, which is very useful when playing Scorched Earth. The only item you can place in its inventory is spoiled meat. However, you can have it harvest a corpse for you, where it will give a whopping 15 times spoil timer on any meat inside its inventory. Very useful if you need to preserve mutton or raw prime meat when taming creatures. The Diabear can harvest giant bee honey from beehives with its alternate attack without damaging the hive and without aggroing the bees inside. Harvesting it at a 3 times rate, honey does have a very quick spoil timer, but if you want to preserve it, craft a load of fishing rods, drag the honey on top, which gives it an unlimited spoil timer. The honey can be unequipped from the rod whenever you need to use it. The Morellatops can be used as a portable water tank, able to hold 750 units of water when full. They did receive a very nice TLC in Ark Survival Ascended, when the tank can be filled up slightly when the Morellatops consumes cactus sap. It now has a water stat that can be leveled to increase its water capacity, and now also has the option to irrigate your own crops for you, which can be done via the option on its radial menu. The Lystrosaurus is a very handy little pet to have around your base. Not only are they cute, but petting the Lystro will boost all XP gains for nearby creatures. Any affected creatures will have an icon displayed next to their name. I find them most useful when slaughtering babies. Pet Lystro, ride the creature you want to level, then let the slaughter commence. It also works well with tribe mates. Have a tribe mate sit on the creature you want to level. You can then craft any items in and around your base, which will give all shared XP to that creature. The grinder is a great example of this when grinding up a load of stone into flint, as it rewards a lot of XP. The Basilosaurus and Tusoteuthis can passively produce spoilable oil in their inventory over time, producing roughly 1 oil every minute. This will cap at 20 in the Basilosaurus and caps at 70 in the Tusoteuthis, where you will have to take it out for them to begin producing more. Admittedly, it's not a lot, but if you do have a bunch of them lying around your base, it can definitely be very beneficial. The Megachelon will passively produce rare flowers and rare mushrooms in its inventory over time. These are valuable resources used in many crafting recipes. This is also another aquatic creature that will give the rider breathable oxygen. Any players or tamed creatures can also swim above the saddle where there's bubbles, which will also replenish their oxygen stat. The Megachelon is only available in Ark Survival Evolved and will be available in Ascended when Genesis Part 1 releases. The Phoenix will defecate silica pearl clams and rarely black pearls. Not really an efficient way to gather these resources, but every little helps, they say. The gacha, when in pairs for the best efficiency, will produce gacha crystals over time. This will occur when rammed full of food. For example, chuck a load of stone inside their inventory as it's cheap and cheerful. You can choose the resource they produce by accessing their radial menu. Not only will they produce that chosen resource, but they will randomly pop out different qualities of crystals, which can drop high quality loot. And I do love a good bit of loot. They do also have a very unique passive ability where they will automatically pick up anything on the ground, especially useful when having when then parked in front of a row of cages with Achatinas. The Achatina will poop out cementing paste rather than poop. So as well as the gachas picking up the cementing paste poop, your snails are also simultaneously producing it in their inventory. Just got to make sure you keep them stocked up with stone, otherwise they will begin to chow down on your hard-earned cementing paste. The gacha is sadly only available in Ark Survival Evolved, but will come to Ark Survival Ascended when the extinction map releases on the 16th of December, which I can't wait for because the gacha is one of my favourite creatures in the game. Moving on to the babysitting creatures in the Ark world. Firstly, we have the Maewing. They act as feeding troughs for nearby babies when nursing mode is activated via its radial menu, and the babies will eat food from their inventory. Their nursing effectiveness stat can be leveled to increase the trough range. Every point put into this stat will also satisfy babies' food stat by 1%. They can carry up to 4 babies in their pouches. You'll always know the Maewing's got your back and your little ones aren't running off. Oh, look how cute they look. The Maewing is such a good creature, only available in Ark Survival Evolved right now, and sadly Ark Survival Ascended players will have to wait until the release of Genesis Part 2 for these beautiful creatures. Next up we have the second babysitter, the Procoptodon. Any baby in a mate boosted female's pouch consumes less food and gains a 2x imprint bonus. Here we have test subject Ferrazino babies. Not all babies will fit in the pouch. For example, something the size of a T-Rex and above probably won't fit in it. The smaller the creature, the longer they can benefit from the pouch. In this clip you can see my baby only received 2% affinity when not in the pouch, and the baby in the pouch received a 4% affinity. And the third and final babysitter is the Gigantoraptor, which is a creature only available in Ark Survival Ascended. They have a lot of passive perks when looking after babies. The Gigantoraptor acts as an adopted parent to your creature babies. Placing babies in the saddle, the Gigantoraptor will act as a feeding trough, where they will actively eat from its inventory. The player does have to be riding it for this to work. It has its own Roar ability, which can be used once per imprint cycle, which will change the imprint requirement of any nearby babies needing care. And just to point out, in case you didn't know already, this can be done when using cryopods in Ark Survival Evolved. The Gigantoraptor also has a very strong passive where it can bond with babies, which in turn makes the baby stronger. When riding the Gigantoraptor that you've imprinted with babies in the saddle, the babies will want to go hunting. A mini game ensues where the babies will mark targets for you to kill with the Gigantoraptor. Progress can be tracked via the counter at the bottom of the screen. After killing all targets, that baby will be fully bonded with the Gigantoraptor, and when nearby to it, it will receive buffs increasing their damage, damage resistance, and a number of other bonuses. You can also attach 2 fertilized eggs to its saddle, where it does have the ability to incubate the eggs for you. When accessing its radial menu, you will see the option to pluck its feathers, which does have a cooldown. When inspecting the feathers in your inventory, you'll see a stat and a percentage. You can place these feathers into tame creatures that you are breeding. After mating these creatures, the feather will be consumed by them and will give the baby a higher chance of taking those stats. The Basilosaurus is one of my favourite aquatic tames in the game, mainly because I hate the ocean and it is the best creature that will passively keep the rider safe from harm. It is completely immune to the jellyfish stun and dismount, the Electrophorus shock attacks, and the Tusoteuthis grapple attack. Not only that, but when at the ocean surface, it is able to rapidly regenerate its health. The only downside to it is that it slowly takes health damage when below a certain depth, but they are so tanky that this will almost never be an issue. The Baryonyx is by far one of the best mounts in the game. It can also heal itself very quickly, as opposed to most creatures in the game when force-fed fish meat. Adding to this, whenever it kills fish, it can heal large chunks of its health. Keeping it moving with another creature that can heal, we cannot forget the Dimetrodon. It has the strongest passive heal ability in the game, which can be activated when ridden or via its radial menu. When selecting Enable Passive Healing, it will heal any nearby allied creatures at the cost of its own food stat, which will drain at an accelerated rate. It will chow down on food like there's no tomorrow, so if you ever need to use them, be sure to have a good supply of food. Its food can be refilled instantly simply by ramming a load of food inside its inventory. Fly out a render distance, the Dimetrodon will have munched up all that food you put inside it. Another great creature with a bunch of saddle passives is the Andrewsarchus, which is a creature currently only available in Survival Evolved, releasing with the Fjordan map in Survival Ascended. Very similar perks to the Basilosaurus. It will protect the rider from numerous threats. The rider is immune to being dismounted by almost anything and everything. For example, any annoying creatures like the Microraptor, Palovia, or even jellyfish. The Andrewsarchus will still get stunned, however you can just hop on your minigun and
say hello to my little friend!
and mow everything down like you're mowing your lawn. The rider cannot be picked by flyers, is immune to projectiles and even tech weaponry like the tech rifle for example. The rider is also immune to environmental hazards like radiation, spores or lava. The Andrewsarchus will still take damage, but the rider will be completely safe. The saddle will also offer the rider breathable oxygen, and will give the rider immunity to poison effects from the attacks of poison wyverns or the basilisk. I feel confident in saying that you will be invincible when riding this beast. Up next, we have a very underutilized creature in ARK. The Diplodocus is able to share its own oxygen stat with its rider, or any allied players, so be sure to level it in this field if you plan to use it for ocean exploration. They can be very useful if you're a low level and not able to unlock scuba gear, giving you easy access to all those rare resources you find in the ocean. They cannot be ridden on land, but you will have the option to ride it once submerged in water. They are very quick swimmers, so can easily outrun most ocean threats. Definitely not a fighter by any means, however they do deal 10 times their melee damage to trilobites, which can be very useful in hunting them down, as trilobites do rarely drop black pearls. The Fenrir will act as a portable refrigerator, which will give most perishable items a whopping 100 times spoil timer. This even works with items like wyvern milk, which cannot be placed inside a refrigerator. And once again, the Fenrir is only available in ARK Survival Evolved and will come to Ascended when the Fjordur map releases. The Fjordhawk has a unique ability where upon dying it will retrieve your death cache and attempt to fly back to where you respawn. In this instance, I steal a wyvern egg, insta-kill myself by eating organic poly, respawn, and my Fjordhawk returns and drops my bag down right next to me. This ability does have a 1 hour cooldown, so try not to be too careless with your life. I do recommend having a breeding pair of these before trying this, as it doesn't always go to plan and they are very annoying to tame. The Fjordhawk is currently only available in Survival Evolved and will also come to Ascended when the Fjordur map releases. Not only is the direwolf a strong battle mount with exceptional pack buffs, it is also a great scout that heavily relies on its keen sense of smell. It has a sniff ability that can be used to locate nearby explorer notes and also any hidden enemies invisible to the naked eye. For example, buried palovias and basilisks, or camouflage rock elementals, just to name a few. This second half of the video will be focused on passive abilities and passive buffs that are used in an aggressive manner, so to speak. Imprinting babies is a very important part of ARK. Performing cares will not only improve their stats minus stamina and oxygen, but it will also grant the imprinter a rider buff when mounting these babies when fully grown. And to showcase this, I'm on ARK Survival Evolved, where I have 3 adult Spinos that I cared for as babies. One at 0% imprinted, which gives 0 bonuses, one at 63% imprinted, which gives 19% damage and 19% damage resistance, and at 100% imprinted gives 30% damage and 30% damage resistance when ridden by the player who imprinted it. It is a very important buff to consider when choosing which creatures you want to ride. Mate Boost is also an important passive buff to take into account when fighting wild creatures, especially when using tamed creatures. A Mate Boost is when a creature has one or more nearby allied creatures of the same species and of opposite sex. This gives the affected creatures a Mate Boost, which can be identified by seeing a heart above their name. Each creature will receive a bonus to their damage output and damage resistance by roughly 33%. A lone creature or 2 creatures of the same sex will not nearly be half as dangerous as 2 that are male and female. The Hydrated Status Effect is a passive buff that the Spino, the Shadowmane, and the Tropical Crystal Wyvern receive once they touch or submerge themselves in water. They will receive 15% melee damage, 25% health regeneration, and 20% increase in movement speed, which will be constant when in contact with water and will last for 30 seconds when exiting water. The Shadowmane and Tropical Crystal Wyvern are currently only available in ARK Survival Evolved and will come to Ascended when Genesis Part 2 and Crystal Isles release. The Megatherium has its own passive buff where it will deal 50% more damage to insects. Whenever it kills an insect, it will activate its insect killer buff, which will last for 120 seconds, increasing its damage output by a whopping 250% and damage resistance by 75%. The total damage will stack with the extra bug damage, giving it a huge damage increase of 375% when fighting bugs, transforming them into a whole different killing machine. This makes the Megatherium very useful in taking down the Broodmother boss, as it classes as an insect and will summon spider minions to kill inside the arena. The Mammoth is equipped with two very useful abilities. It has a trunk bellow which can be used by the rider or will automatically be performed by the Mammoth when unridden. This is known as the Intimidation debuff, which will reduce the melee and range damage of affected targets by 25% and negates the effect of bolas or net projectiles that any affected players attempt to use for the duration of 15 seconds. The saddle also has a passenger seat where a passenger can sit on the drums, banging out a tune and playing a minigame. Every 3 successful rounds will grant the Ready for War buff to nearby allied players and mounts that are mounted by a rider, giving them boosted stamina regeneration and immunity to the Uteranus Fear Roar. Speaking of the Uteranus, it has 2 Roar buffs at its disposal, which once used grants passive beneficial effects to allies and debuffs to attackers. When using the Fear Roar, it will reduce any affected target's attack damage and damage resistance by 50%, and will also cause the majority of medium and small creatures to flee if 100% affected. I have had a lot of success running the Hard Snow Cave with my UT. It can use the Fear Roar to scare out buried Palovias, and of course the debuff comes in very handy with most creatures in this cave. Its most popular roar is the Courage Roar. When used, will give affected allies 25% extra melee damage and 20% damage resistance. You will almost never see a boss fight or any type of battle without a Uteranus in the party. They are an extremely valuable asset. There are a wide variety of creatures that have their own turret modes, which can make them very useful, especially for base defense. The option to set them into turret mode can be accessed via their radial menu. If this is all you want them to do, you can either stick them on neutral if you don't want them to attack everything in sight, or stick them on aggressive if you want them to light up anything in their line of sight. Change the range to high to give them the highest aggro range. Here's a list of creatures with turret mode: the Rock Golem, Arthropleura, Dilophosaur, Calicotherium, Uteranus, Mesopithecus, Aranio, Wyverns, and the Velonasaur, which of course is only available in Ark Survival Evolved, but will come to Ark Survival Ascended on the 16th of December, when the Extinction map releases, assuming they stick to their release date, which, let's be honest, will be a miracle in itself. The Argentavis has a very useful passive at its disposal that once it bites or consumes a carcass, it will gain the Rapid Regeneration buff that rapidly recovers its health and stamina stats for the duration of 20 seconds. There is a few creatures in Ark that reflect damage back to their attackers, having their own unique natural reflective armor protection. The Kentrosaurus can be very dangerous to some and can even make a Giga Rage. The Arthropleura is also not one to be messed with in close quarters. Similar to the Kentro, any creatures that attack it will take a certain amount of damage too, so it's not the best idea to run up to an Arthro with a character pumped in melee thinking you can deal some big damage with your sword, as you will find that is not the case, and the Arthro will have the final laugh. Another good example is the Shadowmane. It has a passive armor debuff known as Full Nail Poison. This debuff is applied to any attackers that land a hit on it for 7 seconds and stacking up to 5 times, slowly damaging the target and decreasing the damage they deal while being affected by the Shadowmane's poison. The Basilosaurus also has its own reflective armor. Whenever it receives damage from melee attacks, the aggressor will get the armor corrode effect. The attacker will receive 4 damage with every hit it does to the Basilosaurus. The Ceratosaurus will also reflect a small amount of damage back to its attackers. Speaking of the Ceratosaurus, it is a dinosaur only available in Ark Survival Ascended. It has a unique passive when it attacks targets with its horn or tailspin attack. The target that is hit will be applied with the Blood Venom debuff. Whenever the debuff is applied, when the Ceratosaurus continues to attack that target, it will apply a healing surge which will also heal nearby tamed carnivores. Back to the Shadowmane, the male has a roar that is useful to many tame creatures and its Shadowmane brethren. This can only be used when mate boosted. Roar boosted allies recover 50 stamina and torpidity per second, and have their speed increased by 50%. This effect also works on flyers. The roar is very useful to use when waking up any creatures affected by cryo sickness, as it will wake them up much quicker. There are a wide variety of creatures in Ark that are pack creatures, all having their own form of passive pack buffs. I will only focus on some of the more popular, as it would take too long to explain every creature. Each species range from different numbers of members per pack, which can be viewed as a plus and a number per each pack member. For example, the Ravager receives pack buffs of +4 in a group of 5 or more, whereas the strongest species receiving pack buffs is surprisingly the Surfactinus, which is a creature only in Ark Survival Ascended, and I really hate this creature, and that is one ugly looking face. So instead I'm going to showcase the Megalodon, which comes in as a close second to the creature with the strongest pack buffs, and of course is available in both games, going up to +8 in a group of 9 or more Megalodons, where they receive 28% extra melee damage and 8.5% damage resistance per extra pack member. They also inflict bleed damage with their attack, so you should never underestimate a tamed Megalodon, especially a pack of them. The Stegosaurus is equipped with 3 different plate modes, which once activated will offer it some great passive utility. Hardened plate will reduce all incoming damage by 50%, turning them into an absolute tanky beast. This mode also boosts wood harvesting. Heavy plate mode will apply a slow debuff effect to any attackers hit with the Stego's primary attack, and will also boost thatch harvesting. Sharpened plate applies an armor penetration effect when attacking with the primary tail attack, and also pierces saddle armor. This is the best mode for harvesting berries. The saddle will also protect the rider from being picked by flyers or being dismounted by annoying dismount creatures. And finally, the Carcharodontosaurus might quite possibly be the strongest dinosaur in the game. This is mainly due to its passive abilities. Firstly, it does have a passive known as Shredded. With every bite the Carcha lands, will reduce any healing the victim receives from any source. It will also receive the passive Killing Frenzy, which occurs whenever the Carcha lands a fatal blow on targets. The effect will last for 10 seconds and will increase the movement speed and grant it immunity to any stun attacks. Blood Rage is by far its strongest ability, which will increase its healing rate and melee damage by 1.75% per stack. The counter is visible at the bottom of the screen, with every kill increasing its blood rage counter, and at 100 full stacks will boost its healing rate and damage by 175%, making them one of, if not the deadliest killing machine in the entire game. And if you wanted to, you could also throw away all this excessive power by roaring, which will give all nearby allied creatures the incited buff, which will give them a temporary movement speed bonus. I personally have no idea why anyone would want to do this, but it is still a passive effect it can give to its allies. Surprisingly, even though it is a very large dinosaur, it can still fit into the tech cave on the island map, which is something the Giga of comparable size cannot do. This will definitely aid you in beating this cave. And that is going to be the end of the video for today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe for more ARK content. There's plenty more and there's plenty more to come. This video did take me a very long time to make, so I'd really appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care. Goodbye.